I think we'll get going. It's 11:02. So, Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Amanda. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Very warm welcome. My name's Chris Potaris. I'm the Chief Executive of Council on the Ageing in Victoria. COTA Victoria is the leading not-for-profit organisation representing the rights and interests of people aged 50 plus in Victoria. We've been operating for over 70 years. We've led government, corporate and community thinking about the positive aspects of ageing. And today our focus is promoting opportunities for and protecting the rights of older Victorians, and what an important milestone it is today with the state election in Victoria on November 26th. You may also be aware, or you may not be aware, that COTA Victoria includes Seniors Rights Victoria as the lead statewide organisation tackling elder abuse in the state. I'd like to welcome my COTA Victoria colleagues, our valued volunteers, any members, and our esteemed guest speakers who also advocate on behalf of older people as part of the important work they do. The esteemed speakers today joining us are Housing for the Aged Action Group Executive Officer Fiona York, Australian Multicultural Services CEO Elizabeth Drozd, Disability Resources Centre Campaign Officer Ali Scott, Senior Rights Victoria Elder Abuse Community Educator Jennifer Evans, and Victorian Council of Social Services BCOS's CEO Emma King. We'll hear from these guests shortly after the overview of the 2022 COTA election platform, which is titled Make Victoria Age Friendly, What Older Victorians Need from an Incoming Government. I'd like to start the presentation, so we'll just put that on the screen for you, if you bear with us. Here we go. So we always start with an acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting. In my particular case, the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations. We acknowledge all First Nations people, the land on which we work and do business. We pay our respects to their continuing culture and all elders, past, present, and emerging, who have taught their children, adults and communities for over 65,000 years on these great lands, the oldest living culture in the world. We commit ourselves to the ongoing journey of reconciliation. We acknowledge the legacy and care of our environment by the traditional owners of the land and the responsibility we have to continue this care. Make Victoria age friendly. Older people currently make up 20% of Victorian voters, and this number is growing. At COTA Victoria, we call on all parties and independents to commit to the following 6 asks in the lead up to the November 26th state election. These are vitally important and will help enable people to maintain their health, mobility, independence, and enjoyment of life as they age. Support of these asks would present a significant return on investment by maximising opportunities for older people to contribute to the community and economy, by reducing expenditure in other areas such as health and community care, by delaying or preventing people from moving into residential care. However, we know that older people are more than a significant return on investment. They're integral to healthy, thriving communities. As I work through this presentation, I encourage people and all guests to write their questions in the Zoom chat function, and we'll hopefully have time to get to a couple of these before we move on to our panel discussion. Okay. In relation to people wanting to view our election platform in full, it is available on our website. Our website is cotavic.org.au, cotavic.org.au, or alternatively, if you don't have access, please call us on 1300 135090, 1300 135090. If you or someone does not have digital access, is an issue we'll be talking about today. We'll get straight into this. What we need to make Victoria age friendly. What are the issues and recommendations that older people told COTA Victoria in our numerous engagement with community members, older Victorians in particular? What do they need prioritised by an incoming Victorian state government? Issue number 1, ask number 1, provide access to safe, affordable housing and strengthen residents' rights. There's been a steep increase in the number of older people experiencing homelessness over the past few years, with older women disproportionately impacted. Home ownership is falling among older Victorians, and only 1.7% of rental housing is affordable to a single person on the aged pension. Despite increasing demand, waiting lists for public and community housing have continued to grow while housing stock has decreased. Retirement villages provide a safe, secure housing option for many older Victorians, but public confidence in the system is low and continues to be so, and rightly so. What's the actual ask? What are we asking? We're asking for improved access to age-friendly housing by building at least 60,000 new public and community homes by 2032 and maintaining the prioritisation of people over 55 on the public housing register, ensuring public and community housing is built in areas that support people to maintain social and cultural networks, to feel safe and to retain access to transport, health and other services that I'll touch on today. We would like them to update the Retirement Villages Act in particular to reduce the complexity of contracts and to strengthen the rights of residents. The updated Act must secure residents' rights to age in place, receive services of choice and have access to a housing ombudsman. Okay, issue number 2, bridging the divide for older Victorians who are digitally excluded. This is a very important one. But bridge the divide, older people are the most digitally excluded age group in Australia. The equity gap for these people has increased significantly over the past few years as more information and services have moved online. There will continue to be a cohort of older Victorians who do not have the capacity or to confidently access information and services online. It's critical that there are low-tech, age-friendly communication channels available to meet their needs. Very important point. What's the ask in relation to this particular point? We're asking the Victorian Government to bridge the digital divide by requiring all government departments to demonstrate how they'll provide equitable access to information and services to people who are not online, and providing dedicated funding for COTA Victoria's information line, which offers phone-based assistance to support people who are digitally excluded. I'd like to make a note that my team and I met with Minister Colin Brooks, the Minister for Disability, Ageing and Caring, on September 29, not too long ago at all. We asked the Minister for a significant increase to fund Victoria's information line. And hopefully we'll get some response. Okay, issue number 3, we're just going to keep moving through this, and please note any queries you have in this during this presentation, and we'll hopefully be able to get to them. Issue number 3, helping older Victorians get where they need to go, transport. Access to transport, in particular, is recognised as a key factor influencing active ageing. Older people who do not drive risk being unable to shop, attend medical appointments or participate in community activities if appropriate and affordable alternatives are not provided. Community transport provides a safe, door-to-door option for many older people who have difficulty using modes of transportation. But the system is plagued by underfunding compared to demand, an inconsistent eligibility criteria and exclusion of people living in residential aged care. What's the ask in relation to this? We're asking the Victorian Government to fund and establish a statewide community transport program to address the needs of older people experiencing transport disadvantage. And this obviously extends across the state, particularly in regional areas. Now, we're moving through this quite quickly, so we'll just keep going at this stage. Issue number 4, ask number 4, improving access to assistive technology to support healthy and active ageing. This is a particularly important initiative for COTA Victoria, and one we have been driving quite overtly. The timely provision of assistive technology is critical to enabling people to remain safe, mobile, active and independent as they age. Grab rails, ramps, chairlifts, hoists, prosthetic aids, wheelchairs and electric scooters are all examples of assistive technology. While these products can be fully funded under the NDIS or National Disability Insurance Scheme, many older people are ineligible for this scheme and cannot access the support they need elsewhere. The Victorian statewide equipment program is underfunded and unable to meet current levels of demand. The subsidy often covers a small fraction of market costs, leaving the recipient with significant out-of-pocket expenses. Many recipients are also faced to wait more than 12 months to receive the support they need. There are, you may not be aware, there are 4.5 million people with disability in this country. Only 500,000 are on the NDIS. This is a sobering statistic. Age is just a number, not a barrier. That is, unless you need the NDIS. Australians over the age of 65 are currently excluded from the NDIS simply because of their age. We are asking the Victorian Government to ensure older people with disability who are excluded from the NDIS have timely and equitable access to the assistive technology they need. At the meeting I mentioned earlier, on the 29th of September, with Minister Brooks, the Minister agreed to raise the need for a nationally consistent assistive technology program to support people with disability who are not eligible for the NDIS at future disability reform ministers' meetings. This is a good start. The Minister acknowledged that and said he would drive this. So it's a good start. And it's an advocacy win for us. Okay, we'll keep moving, and please note any questions you may have as I go through this presentation. Hopefully we'll be able to address them. Issue number 5, supporting people who have experienced or are at risk of elder abuse. And I mentioned Seniors Rights Victoria being a key program of COTA Victoria. Our community legal service, Seniors Rights Victoria, provides a statewide focal point for elder abuse prevention and response. The service is a lead in the elder abuse sector. Between February and July this year, Seniors Rights received 500 more calls than were received during the same period in 2020. 370 more calls than were received during the same period in 21. And the complexity of the cases has also increased. As I mentioned, one of the esteemed speakers, Jennifer Evans, one of the panel speakers, will expand on this in more detail and add to the discussion. What's the ask in relation to that? Well, we're asking the Victorian Government to commit greater investment in elder abuse prevention and response by providing increase for Seniors Rights Victoria. Again, referring back to the meeting I had with the Minister on September 29, we asked for a significant multi-million-dollar increase to the funding of Seniors Rights Victoria. And we'll keep driving that ask as we move forward. Now, we're up to the last one already, so we're well on time. So the 6th ask in particular is a very important one for a lot of older Victorians and was raised during the survey and interaction of older Victorians as a focal point in particular. Improving the oral health. Many older Victorians experience pain and discomfort, the onset of secondary health conditions and poor nutrition because they do not have access, or have timely access rather, to affordable dental care. While some older people can access free or low-cost care through public dental services, they can currently wait for more than 2 years to access this support. Older Victorians living in residential aged care or supported residential services have little or no access to dental care unless it is arranged and paid for by their family. What's the ask? What's the specifics? Again, we're asking the Victorian Government to improve the oral health of older Victorians by ensuring timely access to waiting lists are unacceptable, making a free or low-cost mobile dental service available to older people living in residential facilities and those living in rural or regional areas is a particular note. So again, a very vital, important ask. Okay, so in summary, just to sort of conclude and summarise some of the points I've raised, some of the critical points. These issues and key asks are not exhaustive by any means. They're not an exhaustive list. What we need to, for what we need to age well in Victoria. But they serve as a summary of the priorities for older people as reflected from our research and survey work. I'd like to sincerely thank those of you listening and involved today who have contributed to this work in some way. COTA Victoria are listening. We are listening. Our like-minded, esteemed colleagues from other agencies and other organisations are listening. We're advocating on your behalf on these issues. And most importantly, we're seeking what is needed to support all of Victorians to enjoy ageing. We will shortly open the conversation to a broader cohort of advocacy organisations, as I've just touched on. But before we do, are there any questions from the audience? And I'll revert to Amanda for any questions.
There are not any questions from the audience at this stage, Chris. I did invite them in oh, hang on, let's see. Here's a question. How is COTA pursuing these asks before the election?
Yeah, it's good. It's a great question. So as I touched on the 29th of, or leading up to the 29th of September, where I and my team met with Minister Colin Brooks, we submitted a key election ask briefing paper to the Minister and his advisors and his Chief of Staff. We then expanded on that with a more comprehensive briefing document, which outlined the details of what the asks related to in particular and what they aligned to with other either state or national programs and initiatives. And we also then followed up again just before the meeting with the Minister on September 29th with a very, what I would suggest would be a very overt ask for significant funding to allow us to drive and implement some of those initiatives.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Is there any other questions from anybody else? Another one. What can people participating today do if they want to support these asks?
We encourage anyone participating, the COTA Victorians or not, to get in touch with us in COTA Victoria. And there are many ways that you can assist with driving some of these key priorities and initiatives. We have a number of programs within COTA Victoria. We have a number of people who are able to liaise with you, and we have, over 130 volunteers in our organisation, and they're very valued volunteers, and they're very learned, very experienced, and they have an enormous amount of lived experience. And they're all older Victorians, so they add tremendous value. So I encourage you to be part of that.
Yeah, and we're also going to have some rules that we allude to with our colleague Alex. We're going to talk on those a bit later, so how people can get involved. So I've got another question for you. Will the asks be put to other parties standing for election? Yes, that was a matter of course. So there's always a dual agenda in relation to advocating, or the lesser used term these days, lobbying. There's always a government and opposition. All firing through very quickly now. Has Minister Horn indicated any concrete timeline for completion of the review of the Retirement Villages Act? This appears to be dragging on endlessly. Agree. We certainly agree. However, no, I don't have an update, but I'm happy to maybe address that after the event, and maybe perhaps get back to the person asking the question. Sure, we can, yes, take that on notice. Thank you. Rehousing, can we revisit the housing asks? This attendee, I may have missed this, there was a multi-pronged approach to helping resolve this issue, as in more than asking for 60,000 community homes. Yes, absolutely. Just bear with me 1 minute. Almost there. Don't know if we can bring it back up on the screen as well. So there are three. They were correct, building at least 60,000 new public and community homes by 2032, and maintaining the prioritisation of people over 55 on the public housing register. The other two that you may have missed, ensuring public and community housing is built in areas to support people to maintain social and cultural networks,
to feel safe and to retain access to transport, health and other services. And the last one is updating the Retirement Villages Act to reduce the complexity of contracts and strengthen the rights of residents. The updated Act must secure residents' right to age in place, receive services of choice, and have access to the Housing Ombudsman.
Thanks, Chris. And there's a final question. There are many items people can purchase to assist them, example, smartwatches which alert you if you have a fall, but some people cannot afford to get them. So I guess this is going back to the digital election ask. Is COTA going to look at these preventative measures?
Yes, what I'll do is I might revert that question to one of my policy officers who's very well qualified to answer this, Lauren Henley.
Lauren, are you able to unmute yourself to answer that one around the smaller assistive technology devices? This is probably an assistive technology device question, actually, more than anything else.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are unmuted. We can hear you.
Thanks. I'm having some tech issues, which is ironic, the topic of the question. But yes, Anita, so Council on the Ageing Victoria for the past few years has been leading a national campaign called Assistive Technology for All. And the aim of that campaign is really to ensure that all older Australians have access to the assistive technology they need to help them age well. So mainstream devices such as the one you've identified would be covered under that as well.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. And we have another one for you, Chris. We seniors want to leave our children and grandchildren a good legacy, which means taking action to mitigate the increasing climate change disasters. What priority does COTA Victoria give to that? Might not be one you can answer, Chris, but it might be another one that the policy team takes on if you want to defer.
Yeah, I'm happy to defer to Alexia at this stage.
Alexia, would you like to unmute and take that one on?
So one of the challenges for us is, of course, that we face a large number of priorities, and we do some work on climate change. I think if we had more resources, we'd like to do more work in this area, but we also recognise that this is an area in which there are many organisations working, and that if we can work in conjunction with them, that's also really helpful for us, because it's not necessarily, well, Ken, who asked the question, is definitely an expert in this area. It's not a broader expertise in the organisation. So we want to work with volunteers and with other organisations as well on this, because we recognise this is a really important issue as well. An issue that many other people are concerned about, as you say, Ken, in terms of the legacy that they're leaving for their children and grandchildren.
Yes, thanks, Alexia. So, Chris, I'll just go back to you if there's any comments that you want to make before we move on to the next section.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Look, I'd just like to sincerely thank everyone participating in this. It's very, very appreciated and very, very welcomed. I invite you to read our election platform in full on our website, so cotavic.org.au, again, or call us on 1300 135090 if you or someone you know does not have digital access. I'd now welcome our advocacy panel to consider the asks of older Victorians. Do they agree? What issues are missing? And do they think an incoming government will accelerate some or all of these key asks? This will be followed by VCOS CEO Emma King outlining how you can advocate to your local MPs and political candidates on issues that are important to you personally, examples such as climate. But first, our panel discussion. This will be facilitated by our esteemed colleague and Seniors Rights Victoria Education Coordinator, Gary Ferguson. I'd like to welcome and thank Gary and all our guests.